That's good television. All right. Hello, welcome. Here I am. It is time to stream some more coding. Um, so welcome. If this is your first time here, welcome for the first time. If it is not, welcome back. Um, I am very tired. I mentioned last week that work was pretty intense. Um, my work doesn't normally do crunch for releasing software when we're trying to get something out the door on a deadline. But I guess sometimes you do get asked to crunch, and that is when you are working a lot of overtime to try and get something out the door. And that's what I've been doing for the last week and a bit. And it's exhausting. I'm really tired. I feel like I feel like the sort of the most bang for your buck on coding is if you're doing it like 6 hours a day. Like then you're not getting tired. You're not like wearing yourself out. You're producing good quality code, and you're proud of it, and you feel motivated and and happy. And like if I'm having trouble with something, I will just keep working on it and working on it and working on it. I have trouble letting it go. Um, but at the same time, after 9 or 10 hours of coding in a day, you get run pretty ragged, and you make a lot of mistakes, and then your code goes into review and it comes back and you're like, oh yeah, I wrote that, I did that, that was dumb, oops. So yeah, it's been a little bit intense. So yeah, thank you for coming by. If you're here, I'm just gonna look in the chat and see if anyone's talking. No one's talking in the chat, so maybe that means no one's watching. I don't know. I don't know. In any case, we're gonna keep working on our Deck of Many Things app. I'm gonna try. Aha, Rock Pusher. Hello. Uh, yeah, it feels like there's yeah the and also then your your employees get really tired and cranky, and they can't do their other projects. Okay. So, but we're gonna do this. It's gonna be good. We're gonna get some more done, and that'll be great. So, yeah, let's do this. I am gonna try something new today. I've not been using YouTube for music, like as a music source. Actually, this reminds me, I need to I need to set up my music source that way. Oh, what is the app that I use to do that called? Uh, 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 uh. Um, I need to set up my music source for that. But I'm gonna try using YouTube for the musics because this is one of those things where I'm like tired enough that I can't remember what the app is called, but I remember what the icon looks like. So maybe I will see it in here, and that will help me set up a new source for audio, that being Safari, so that we can run audio off of the YouTube. I've been trying not to do that because it. Oh, there it is, loopback. That's what we want. Why is that not in the applications folder? Why did it not move itself to the applications folder? You should always move yourself to the applications folder. Um, uh, I want Safari. Why can't? Monitor through built-in output. That is what we want. And then we go to OBS. You're not seeing my screen, so you're not seeing any of this. That was silly. I'm not going to show you OBS right now because you will see recursive garbage. Let's see here. If we go to settings and audio. I also wish that I had more time to set this. Oh, what did I call that? Hold on. You can see my screen for a second. That way things will be better. Screen. Okay. And I'm like trying to hit Windows in the preview. So this is loopback. And I want this to be Safari. Good. Now let's go to OBS and switch our audio setting from iTunes. Save that. From iTunes to Safari. Come on, we can do it. Okay. And now let's see if we can get some music out of YouTube. The reason that I haven't wanted to do this is because, as we've already discussed in previous streams, my processor is so incredibly pegged that it'll probably slow down compile times and whatnot, so I hear stuff. Oh god, that's loud. Okay, too much Chrono Trigger. Too much Chrono Trigger. But I figure if I play video game music, maybe my VODs will not get muted because it's video game music, and so no one will know that I'm not just playing Chrono Trigger. Can you guys hear that? It looks like it's coming through in the levels. Switching over to chat. The new Twitch account is because I closed the old Twitch account. The old Twitch account, I went through a sort of social media purge a little while ago, and I'm kind of still in the middle of it. I'm trying to figure out how to close my Facebook account, but that's really difficult to do because Facebook is used for all sorts of stuff, including like events and whatnot. So my hope is that I can figure out my way out of Facebook, but it's difficult. So, yeah, anyway, as part of my social media purge, I got rid of a bunch of accounts for things that I was not using, and I wasn't using Twitch at the time. I was like, nah, whatever. And so I got rid of the account. And then I restarted it, or I started a new one, and I'm like, it's got a different focus anyway. The other one was more video games. This one is more definitely all in on programming all the time. So that is basically the idea. But we'll listen to video game music because it's music that I think we can listen to without getting muted in VODs. I think, maybe. We'll find out. Still working on getting the last VOD that I did up as well. That, as it turns out, doing transcoding on a 3-hour video with a 5-year-old MacBook Air is really bad, especially when you've got like a spinning disk hard drive. Not in the MacBook Air, but like an external spinning disk hard drive. That was not going super quickly, so I need to figure out a solution for that, but we'll get there. For now, I'm saving all the VODs, so hopefully they will go up soon in some way once I figure out the hardware stuff. When it comes down to it, the MacBook Air is the weak link, but I'm really not sure what to do about that either, because I'm not super inclined to buy a new MacBook right now. I think that Apple's current crop of laptops are all really bad for various reasons, mostly based on the keyboard. I want a laptop whose keyboard will not get a speck of dust in it and break in like a year or two. Especially, well, if it breaks in a year, that's okay because it's under warranty. But if it breaks in like 13 months from a speck of dust under the keyboard and the entire top part of the computer has to be replaced as a result of that, that would be bad. So until they update their computers to make them not garbage like that, I don't want to get a new one. Also, there's like all the processor attacking bugs now that apparently won't be resolved for several years, so can't hold off buying a computer for that, but I can for bad keyboards. So we'll see. If I can scrape together some money, maybe I will buy myself a new MacBook Pro, and that will make all of this run so much better. But we'll figure it out at some point. For now, this is strictly in the hobby sort of side anyway, and as motivation to get me to work on side projects. So yeah. Okay. Hey folks, it is good to see you there in the chat. Let's continue working on our app. I'm just going to start running it. It wants to run it on my iPad, which I'm using as an external display, which is why I keep looking over here. I'm going to switch sources over to the screen so you can see what I am doing. Okay, so let's get our app. It wants to compile it to the iPad. That would be really bad. I'd lose my second monitor. So we're just going to continue using our iPhone SE simulator. Music can come down a bit. All right, that we can do. I can probably raise the mic up a little bit. I don't seem to be peaking, so... How's that? Is that a better balance? Unfortunately, the music volume for me is like completely unrelated to what you hear, so all I have to go on are these like little lines on the screen telling me how high everything is. Okay, so opening the SE simulator, as we discussed earlier, the first compile always takes the longest, so we'll just get it going. And yeah, normally when I'm like doing work, these compiles are super fast, even on this computer. But because of OBS going simultaneously and doing stuff with the processor, everything is super slow. So where we got to last time, we had a blank screen. No, we actually had more going on than that. We had done some beginning UI work, but it still looks awful. And this is something that I should point out. It's not like I'm doing this and I'm like satisfied with how it looks. I want to make an app that looks awesome, but for right now, just getting it working is the intent. So we can say how many cards we want to draw and say go, and then draw, and it will tell us the name of the card and decrease the number of draws we have left. And if we run into a card that has an effect on the number of cards that we draw, which we did not that time, then we will get an alert that will... Oh, there we go. So we get the option here to draw an extra card, sure, and that will increase the number of draws remaining. So this is all working as we would hope that it would work. So... yeah, exactly. Pretty comes later. We are going to put the functionality in first and figure out how to make it look good afterwards. That said, I do want to do something visual this time, and that's... where's my... I made a list in Sublime Text last time of things that we could get done. So main screen has a way to start with card entry. We did that. It has a draw button and a number of remaining draws. We did that. When the user draws a card, show another view with that card displayed. We did that. Card view has name, image, rules. We have not done that. Card view can be dismissed. We did that. Main view decrements draws. We did that. Card view does not show images. That sort of is the same thing. Main view shows previously drawn cards, and it says carousel. I think that's what we're going to work on today. Tap into previously drawn cards from the main view, so that we have to show them first, and then we should be able to reopen them. And then setting screen, which should allow us to change which rule set that we're using, like D&D 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, or 5th edition. We're probably going to skip 4th edition because there's no SRD for it, but probably someone has done a retro, quote-unquote, retro clone of 4th edition, I assume. Maybe. And then prettyifying stuff. I would like to do... I'm saying like Hearthstone hand thing. Really, like this applies to, I guess, Magic Duels or whatever. But just the fan at the bottom of the screen with the cards in it. That should be not unattainable with a collection view layout. And this is what I was writing last time for all the people whose music I used in my last stream. So yeah, basically I want to create a collection view at the bottom of the screen that has like the card fan, so that you can swipe left and right and then tap on a card or maybe drag a card out of it to actually draw the card. That would be cool, and I think it is attainable in that I did a prototype for it like years ago and it kind of worked. So we'll see if we can get that going. First of all, though, let's work on this because that should be a lot easier. So the first thing that I'm going to do... Oh, we need to commit all of our changes. What did we actually do last time? So we completely gutted our draw view controller. I think this all probably falls under just draw cards. So we created the card view. This is just the card view and the card view controller. Okay, so let's do this first, I guess. Say that we added the card view. We'll just add the lines with, no, not the controller, just the card view. So stage that, stage that, stage that, stage everything but the controller, stage that, stage that, and say add card view, commit that, and then add the card view controller, and then add card drawing. Good. So then we'll move back to master. Merge draw cards on. Good. I'm trying to keep up like good branching practice here, but it's, I guess, not that essential right now as I'm the only one working on this, but okay, so let's call this carousel, I guess. Carousel view. Let's just call it carousel. Okay. So what we want to do, I think, is add a collection view that lives basically here. The collection view will contain cards as we draw them, and we will hopefully be able to like scroll sideways through it to view all of the different cards that we have drawn. Now, I guess stage one of that is that we want to create we want the collection view to be to fit into this area and to be about 16 by 9 aspect ratio. Ideally, it's going to be in the middle here, and the cards are going to be about 16 by 9 in their size, because that's the aspect ratio of the art. They're going to be a bit bigger than that, I guess, because they'll have a border on them. So they won't be perfectly 16 by 9, but we can work that out later. For now, they'll be 16 by 9. So we need to figure out how much space there is here on the screen, and then position the collection view here, make it 16 by 9 ratio, and then what we'll do is we'll make the cards scroll sideways, and we won't have this mask to bounds, so you'll be able to see the cards no matter how many you'll be able to see the cards when they are outside the bounds of the view. That's not actually great, because then if the user starts to swipe outside the collection view, it won't register. So maybe we should just make the collection view take up this entire part of the screen, and then figure out exactly how we're going to work the sort of paging controls for it. Ideally, we want the cards to sort of snap to a card. So if you scroll 30% of the way to a new card and then let go, you scroll back. Or if you scroll 70% of the way, then you snap forward. But I guess for now, we'll just put it down here, and we'll worry about the scrolling behavior later. This is something that is important, is to kind of think through your problems before you try and solve them. And definitely I have coworkers and whatnot who will write extensive specs for everything that they or their teams work on before they start doing it. And that's definitely actually what I would be doing at work. But here we're kind of just shooting from the hip. So I guess we'll say the draw view. I'm going to create a collection view. And autocomplete's working for us today. That's good. So yeah, we will need to give it a layout. We're gonna create it without a frame. So the frame is like where it is on the screen in iOS, but we are gonna use layout constraints to set the frame. So we can just set the frame to 0, and then the view will resize it based on those constraints. We do need a collection view layout. This is the default UI collection view flow layout. This is like if you look at like any app that shows like a grid of different cells, like the Photos app in iOS is a good example of this. Then that's something that resembles a UI collection view flow layout. So that's basically what we want. I guess maybe we should create the layout first. Gonna have to remind myself how to use this layout dot. Is it layout direction? Scroll direction equals horizontal. Because it's just going to resolve some of this, and my mic cable is interfering with my mouse here. So if you're hearing strange audio stutters, that is why. So I'm going to give it this layout, and then return collection view. Okay, so see if solving that is going to let autocomplete work for this enumerator. Oh, it was working. Okay, so it is horizontal. Okay, good. So, great. That's, I think, all we're going to need to do for initial setup on the collection view. I'm going to also say collection view. I am like sort of watching chat too, so if you ever have any questions about like why I'm doing some of this stuff, let me know, because I'm always interested in answering those kinds of questions. I'm just gonna make this red so that we can see it, and we'll say collection view. Oh yeah, this is important. Translates auto resizing masks into constraints equals no. By which I mean false. We use two different programming languages to program on iOS, Objective-C and Swift, and one of them uses yes and no for booleans, and the other one uses the more conventional true and false. And it's very easy to get messed up and forget which language you're in and start writing all of your booleans as the wrong thing. Which in Objective-C, I think the compiler will actually let you get away with, because it thinks that they're C booleans, but they're different, so it's bad news. Anyway, okay, so that should create a collection view for us, I hope. And then we'll put it, I guess, underneath the stack view. So just reminding myself what this stack is doing. Axis vertical. It centers everything. So this should just be sizing itself based on the intrinsic content size of its contents. So like this has an intrinsic content size of 1 line of text. This has an intrinsic content size of based on the text that's in it, which is just 1 line. And this is an intrinsic content size, again, just based on the contents of the button. So the stack will end up with a content size that is based on that. So if we put our collection view like directly below it, then we should. I like that we got the in sleep sound as a song. That's nice. Okay, so if we put our collection view like right below this, it should size itself properly, or it should size itself to fit the rest of the screen. All right, so collection view. So we'll pin the top anchor. Constraint equal to stack dot bottom anchor. We'll pass it in a constant of 16, because we have big, beautiful screens now. We can handle 16 points of padding. And we'll just pin the leading and trailing anchors the same way that we did for the stack. In theory, we could actually put the collection view into the stack, but then we would... I guess we then just have to set its height. Actually, it might size itself properly. So we would have to set this to fill. That would make our text field stretch out a whole bunch, but I don't really care about that. No, we'll just do it this way for now. Also realized that during my last stream I did a very poor job of describing retain cycles. I was kind of kicking myself about that later. Okay, so we're pinning it ideally under here to the bottom margin, to the right and left margins. So in theory, that should work, and put a collection view there with nothing in it. Let's actually make the background color black. And the collection view obviously is not doing anything yet. It has no cells in it because I have not populated it with cells. But these things, this will come. This will come in time. Oh. Oh, wait, stop. No, don't run on the iPad. How did that get selected? Did I do that? How did that happen? Okay, whatever. Stop running it on the simulator. Run it on the simulator. That's why it was taking so long to compile. I'm like, what's going on? And then, of course, it's running to... Yeah, it's running on... It tries to run on the iPad. But the iPad is a monitor. I don't want to lose my monitor. Okay, collection view, show up, please. Right. Uh-oh. How did I mess something up already? There's, like, no... Where's my... console? What did I do? What did I do? Okay, it's a constraint problem. Oh, yeah, I forgot to add the collection view to the view. That was... I mentioned being very tired. This happens. Okay, so we need to actually add the view to the hierarchy before we can lay it out. That was silly. So, and the long compile times make it just so much more painful to make small mistakes like that. It's like, no, you go back to start. You do another 5 minutes to get back to where you were. Okay, this is basically what we want. This is like a very typical Jeremy layout error. You can see that the collection view is going off the bottom of the screen. That is because, actually, all right, okay, so that's because our layout margins guide does not have any sort of like top and bottom padding built into it. Let's just give it 16 points. Now, this is the very typical Jeremy layout bug. That needs to be -16. And that is something that I forget every single time. Like, seriously, every time I lay out a view, I like do a bunch of work on it, and then I like usually I have to do a bunch of stuff to actually get it to appear, and then go back and look at it, and like something is running off the right edge of the screen, and it's running off the bottom of the screen because I forgot to set the negative. Okay, we did it. We got the collection view to show up. Now we need some cells in the collection view. So I guess the first thing we can do the getting the cells to show up, and then we can design the cells. So let's go back to our card view controller. Now the card view controller needs to implement the collection view delegate, which is a sort of janky old school Objective-C way of doing things, but that is the world that we live in on iOS. So we will make a declaration that this inherits from UI collection view delegate. This is not actually inheritance because it's a protocol. So what it's saying is it will implement the necessary methods from this to make a UI collection view work. And then it also, actually, I don't even think it needs to implement that right now. Maybe it does. I mean, we can implement it. Maybe we will implement it right now. Anyway, UI collection view. Data source is the one that we absolutely need to implement. So this says, I will provide you with the data that you need to populate a collection view. And it says now, it doesn't conform to this protocol. Would you like to add the protocol stubs? Sure, but I guess we'll put this here. What? I named it helper. I never do that. It's helpers. Helpers go there. Okay. So we'll implement the UI collection view data source. So this means that there are some methods that we actually need to implement that are pre-specified. I guess one of them is number of sections in collection view. Actually, we don't need to implement that one because it defaults to 1. Second one is like collection view number of items in section. We need to implement that one, and then cell for item at index path. We need to implement that one as well. So basically your collection view, it's composed of sections. Sections have a header, and then each header contains a bunch of cells. And so this, by implementing this method, we return an integer that says how many sections that we expect there to be. I'm pretty sure we don't need to implement this one because it will just assume 1 if we don't implement it. So this one, number of items in section, is like how many different cells that we want. So I'm going to say 5 to start with. And then cell for item at index path. This is basically saying what do you want to use for a cell. And so we're going to create a custom cell class to put in here for now. But for the moment, we are just going to return a default. So I'm going to say, first I'll create a cell. So we'll say let cell equals. Now you'll note that we don't actually have a reference to collection view in this view yet. We created it in the view, but we haven't actually referenced it at all in this view controller. This is referring to the collection view. So like when this asks what should the cell look like, it will pass in the collection view that it wants to reference. I'm not actually sure if this is going to work. This is something that I saw in a project at work. I thought that we needed to declare reuse identifiers manually for all these classes, but apparently maybe that's just something that we overrode. Okay, apparently that's not going to work. So we will say, we will just come up with a random reuse identifier for now. And I will explain what all this is. Let's just look. All right, so what happens? What is this doing? Sorry, I'll just silence my compiler warnings before. Okay, so what is going on here? What is this? All this garbage? When we make a table or a collection on iOS, the only cells that exist at any given time are the ones that you can actually see. So if you have a table with, I don't know, let's see what I have access to here. This is like simulator stuff, so it's not my personal stuff, obviously. So I guess this is an okay example. So reminders, maybe this is not a good example because these are, reminders is like fancy UI now. What I want is just like a really basic, oh, you know what? Perfect. So the cells that you see in this table, this table can be broken down into its various components. This is a table header, right? This is a cell. This is a header view. This is a footer view. There's an invisible transition to another header view here. Then there's a cell, another header footer combination, and then a whole bunch more cells, and then another header footer combination, and then another cell down here. And you can see that all of these cells use the same basic template, right? They all have this left image, and then they have label here, and then this disclosure indicator over here. They all highlight the same way. They all have the same behavior associated with them. So these are all based on the same cell template. They just have all this kind of setup stuff changed. So what's happening here is that only the number of these cells that are necessary to show this particular part of this particular view are made at any given time. As soon as the cell scrolls off the top of the screen, it is removed from the table. And but it's not destroyed. Like when iOS started, we needed to preserve our system resources as much as possible, and creating and destroying cells constantly is not a good use of resources. So when you don't need a cell anymore, you take it out of the table, but you don't get rid of it. You put it in a bucket, basically, or it's a queue in programming terms. So you put it in a bucket. And then next time you need a cell that uses that same template, probably because one is scrolling on from the bottom of the screen, you go to that bucket and you're like, do I have any cells that match this template? And if you find something that matches that template, you pull it out and you reuse it. So what's happening here, what this method does is it says, okay, go to the bucket and find a cell that has this reuse identifier. And if you find one, then use that. If you don't find one, then create a new one. And that allows us to make efficient use of our system resources when scrolling through a table, such that there's only a number of cells ever in existence equal to the number of cells that are actually on the screen. So that's what's happening here. So yeah, if it can't find a cell, it will create one and give it that reuse ID. If it can find one, then it will just reuse it. And then for index path, the index path is where in the collection it's going to be. So remember I said the collection has table or has sections. Each section has a header and a footer. So like in a table, which is an easier example, you've this is a section, this is a section, this is a section, and so on. So the index path is just coordinates within the table. So section 0, cell 0 would be this cell. Section 0, cell 1 would not exist because that would be this cell. Section 1, cell 0 would be here. Section 1, cell 1 would be here, and so on. So what this method is defining is, given an index path, what should this collection view be showing? And that's what we're returning here. So here we're just saying dequeue a cell with the reuse identifier reuse ID for that index path. Now, we're not configuring it at all. We're just sort of doing that. Let's configure it. We'll say cell.background color equals red. So we create the cell, we color it red, and then we say go. Now, one of the catches here is that we've just arbitrarily defined this reuse ID as a string reuse ID. So we're not actually the collection view doesn't know what to do with that. So I'm gonna say view or card view. We call it card view, right? Card view dot collection view. Doesn't seem to be able to find it. Oh. Right, why am I putting this in the card view controller? That was silly. Ha 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 ha. That's all, this is all in the wrong. This is all in the wrong view controller. Of course. This needs to be in the draw view, not the card view. Until I'm tired and only work on this project once a week for 3 hours. Okay, so let's put this where it's supposed to go, which would be after life cycle. There. Okay. So now in our life cycle, we want to, after we load the view, wait, I did it again. That still needs to be negative 16. I put it in the view instead of the view controller. Okay. So we want it after life cycle, before actions. No, after actions. Okay, let's try this again. So now we'll say draw view dot collection view, and we will register. I need to move over my reuse ID as well. We will do something better for that reuse ID, but okay. So we're going to register. This is just the default UI collection view cell for cell reuse identifier. And I also need to move over the protocol conformance I accidentally added here. Okay, did I make any other changes to this view that I need to remember? I changed that. I'm not going to worry about that right now, so I'm just going to discard changes. What changes did I accidentally make here? No, that's correct. That's still correct. All that's what we want. Okay. Except I'll delete this extra line. All right. So do. Okay, so this protocol conformance needs to go in here. And I did notice the typo in my mark. Okay, so now that we've got that correct, we have registered the cell. Oh, we need to say .self the cell type for the reuse identifier. So this says, so collection view, when you are asked to produce a cell of this reuse identifier, what you are actually going to produce is a cell of this type. And this is just the default UI collection view cell. We can subclass this to create custom cells, but right now we just care about showing something. All right, so now let's actually implement that delegate as well, just in our Wondermoo. I'm glad you're finding this interesting in a general sense. I'm not sure, like, what the market is for watching people program on Twitch, but again, it's a way to incentivize getting these app ideas actually out. And for this one, I chose something easy. Like, this is something that is a bunch of really conventional stuff, but I want to experiment with some stuff too. I want to make a watch app, for example. And I have an idea for a watch app I'd like to build, but I just have never had the time to like really dig into WatchKit and see what I can do with it. So that could be good too. Okay, so the collection view delegate, I want size. Do I not actually have a... Oh, it's the layout. Okay, so... Right, because we don't... Okay, collection views are weird. Table views all work the same way for the most part. Like, all table views are vertically scrolling. They all have, you know, a height for their cells and whatnot that you can define through their delegate. UI collection views can be anything, right? They can be the grid shape or whatever, but they can also be like weird spirals and 3D things, like, you know, in iTunes, the like, or I guess in Finder actually. It's maybe a better... Oh yeah, let's just look at all my files. That seems like a great thing to do. So like, if we look at like this up here is a collection view. As well, like they can have all sorts of different layouts. So we're gonna make ourselves a delegate of UI collection view flow layout because we're using the most again, the sort of generalized default layout, and that. Aha, size for item index path. That's what I'm looking for. So now here I'm gonna create something that's 16 by 9. So I'm gonna say. The Desert Bus, doing the Desert Bus app for Desert Bus 10 was like, on Twitch was very therapeutic, but it was also like terrifying because it was like this older Objective-C code base, and I was sort of building on top of it, and a lot of the layout code that I was using was kind of like, most of what I was doing was layout code, and a lot of it was like older ways of doing things that were just really hard to debug. But so this is a little bit nicer. Okay, so let's so what we'll say for our size is we'll say let height equal say actually card view or draw view. draw view dot collection view dot height. And then we'll say let's width equals height times all right. Wouldn't be height, it would be frame dot size dot height. So we have the height, we want the width, so we divide the height by 16 and then we multiply it by 9. So we actually want that's right? Maybe. And then return okay. That's right? Like, so what this is saying is it's very similar to one of these data source methods where it's like, okay, I've got collection view with a layout, and tell me how big you want this item given this index path. So we can actually give all of our different cells different sizes if we want to. But in this case, we're going to make them all the same size, and that size will be the height of the height will be the same height as the collection view, and their width will be sort of that with a 16 by 9 ratio. I'm getting like all sorts of different Magus wind sounds, I guess. I do like having the Chrono Trigger music on. That's like very nostalgic for me. Shall we see if this actually works? I think it... oh, you know what we haven't done? We haven't made ourselves the delegate of this collection view. So that's very important. So I'll say draw view dot collection view dot delegate equals self. So the delegation pattern in Objective-C, oh, I lost my second monitor. That's not good. There we go. It's back. You're back. I can see you again. Okay, so the delegate pattern is basically like this collection view exists, and it's just like kind of... it exists, and it's just kind of here. And when it sets itself up with cells and whatever, it asks its delegate, whatever its delegate is, what should I do? So the first thing it says is like, how many sections should I lay out? How many cells should I put in each section? What should those cells look like? And then when it's doing the layout, it will actually it will ask how big should they be. And so ideally, if all this is set up correctly, what we said is that this class is the delegate and the data source. Oh man, I have to set up the data source too. Data source equals self. That's important. Almost forgot that. So yeah, when it asks for what it should use as its data source and what it should use as its delegate, it will find this class, and so then it will call its delegate methods on this class. And so again, that's, as I say, when it's asking these questions, we will provide answers. So let's see if this works, and if it doesn't, we will debug it. Okay. It worked. So we have something that looks pretty awful, but it is definitely here. And it's performing basically how we wanted it to. Now, this actually looks pretty bad, having the having it not go right to the edges. So let's just do some cleanup here. Let's take out this black background. Let's just have it go right to the leading and trailing anchors of the view. Do. I note that we still have a black background. That's probably because it is a default to black. So let's say collection view dot background color equals transparent. Oh no, it's clear, isn't it? Hey, okay. I've seen worse. I've seen worse. Now I wonder if we can add some layout margins there. I think maybe I have to do this via the delegates. I feel like we should be able to do it in the collection view itself, but maybe I'm totally off base with that. Maybe let's check the layout. Okay, minimum inter-item spacing is something that would be useful. I mean, section inset will maybe get done what we want. So 0, 16, 0, 16. Let's see what that does. Basically, I'm just trying to make it so that the there's sort of a built-in edge inset. Hey, there we go. On either end of the content in our collection view. So instead of it being like the entire collection view is pinned to the edges, we have this that's kind of like built in on the right, and let's just make that consistent between the cells. So say layout dot, what was it called? Inter-item spacing, minimum line spacing. Wait a minute. Minimum inter-item spacing. I was right the first time. Equals 16. I said before that this is not about looking nice, and that's correct. It is not about looking nice, but you know we can do a little bit here to make it look okay. That didn't do anything. Maybe that's because it's meant to go... Maybe it's meant to scroll up and down, so it's rotated 90 degrees. So this would be the line spacing, and that would be the inter-item spacing. That doesn't make sense to me, but it's possible that that's how it works. Okay. Sure, you do your thing, flow layout. I respect you. I don't... So, they expect flow layouts to scroll up and down all the time, but like tables already scroll up and down. So like a lot of the time when you're using this, it's because you want to make basically a table that goes sideways, right? Seems right to me. Okay, let's make a cell. So instead of having this, these red cells, I want to actually have a custom cell. Let's actually. So that's all stuff that's supposed to be there. Add collection view to draw controller. Boom. Okay, so we're gonna make a custom card view now. So you can delay that order. We'll create a new group. And we'll call this card cell. I think that's safe because we're not going to use... Oh, we are going to maybe have other card cells. Okay, well, we'll get there. So then in there, we'll actually subclass an existing class. So we're subclassing UI collection view cell. You remember last time we just used the default. That's where we want to make it. So this we can slot into basically anywhere that we would use the default, but here we can customize it ourselves. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go into my my draw view controller, and I'm going to see if... Okay, I'm curious whether this has a built-in reuse identifier, whether that can work. So first of all, we said we want card cell instead. Car cell? No. This is not the deck of cars. Now, I want to know if that just gets a default reuse identifier for being... no, it doesn't. So that's interesting. I need to look up what we're doing at work for that then. Because I've always been curious. Like, this has... This has a reuse identifier property, but it doesn't seem to like do anything by default. Maybe it's just made for me to override it. I mean, in theory, it wouldn't be that difficult to create something that that always returned something based on the name of the file that it's in. Okay, let's see if... Can I use it now? That I've overridden it? I can. Nope, I can't. What does it say? Yeah, but I don't want to create... Huh. Interesting. I want this to be static. So I find that odd. I will figure out how that's supposed to work. Because, like, this is how I did it for ages. That should work. So we're just defining the reuse identifier here as a static variable. So static means that it is sort of associated with the class as opposed to an instance of a class. So we call it on card cell itself and not an instance of a card cell. So it just makes it like a constant that we can access from wherever we want to. Still, I feel like I should be able to access that reuse identifier property from somewhere. Anyway, so card cell dot okay, so that should now allow us to use our card cells, or set our collection view up to use our card cells instead of the default, and we can test that by removing the thing that colors them red there. I'm gonna override the default initializer. Really? Is it with frame? You would think it would be with reuse identifier. I don't remember. Because I'm also not getting, oh. I was going to say I'm not getting the required initializer, but there it is. So, okay, so now these cells are going to be intrinsically red, so I don't need to color them red when I create them out here. So theoretically, providing we're creating the right cell, and we have registered that cell for that reuse identifier, this should still leave our cells red, even though we're not coloring them red in there, which is what we want, because we want to customize the cells sort of in and of themselves. And then any sort of like extra customization we can do here. Basically, this will be the cell itself will define the broad strokes of what we want, and then this will just be the individual tweaks that are going to be different for every single cell. Is it running on the iPad again? No, it is not. Good, good. Why are we taking... Why are we indexing? Why do you have to index anything? What are you doing? This is really appropriate music, but, like, what? Xcode? What? Stop. Just build the app. Xcode, you're going on a timeout. Not doing anything, Xcode. You can ignore me. Okay. Let's try this again. Super beach ball. Yep. Exactly. Okay, back we are. Let's hope. Okay. I'll load the app. It says build succeeded. Oh, stop. No, don't build to the iPad. Must you... It's like, you've got a device hooked up. Do you want to build to the device? No, please don't build to the device. Okay. Build to the simulator that I have open and have been using all day. Please. Okay, it is building. Slowly building. Are the cells still red? I almost forgot the test that we were trying to see. And of course we closed Xcode, so it's going to take forever to show up again. Okay, the cells are still red, so good. We have succeeded in transferring over to using this cell. Okay, so what do we want to appear in this cell? I guess what we want is just to make sure that yes, pay no attention to the device over here that is doing all the, like, that's playing music and holding chat and doing all the fun stuff. Ignore that device, please. Just build to this other device. Xcode can like build to devices wirelessly now, which is awesome, but it breaks relatively frequently, where it like just forgets that it's hooked up to a device wirelessly. And that's unfortunate, but it's kind of nice because it means that you can have your phone like charging on like a wireless charger on your desk, and then just build to it, and the app just shows up on it, and that's pretty nice. Okay, so let's lay out these cells and make them look kind of nice. Let's do something interesting. We're just gonna do stuff in the initializer. So let's see. What I want to do is say let's actually make this a little fancy. Wait, we don't have to say cell. We just say layer. Layer dot border color equals black. Layer dot border width equals 1. This is the old way of doing this, I think. I want a 1 pixel wide width as opposed to a 1 point wide width. So on a standard iPhone, I guess this is an iPhone SE, this is a 2x screen. So every point that I use for reference is going to actually be 2 pixels. So if I say this, what I'm asking for is a line that is 1 pixel wide as opposed to 1 point wide. And then border color, I want black, but because layers are a core graphics thing and not a UI kit thing, I actually need to say it's a core graphics color. Okay, fancy borders. Really? Oh, okay, so again, I can't just use this dot notation because this is like, what is dot black in the terms of a CG color? UI color dot black dot CG color. There we go. That works. So we've got a border width. Let's give it layer dot corner radius equals, I don't know. Sure. Layer. Okay, so that's that stuff, and then we'll say background color equals. Is this like valid? No. I like don't want it to be white, but I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be white, but I don't want it to be like garish. But I guess all the default colors are garish. But I don't want to spend time on this, so let's see. Not alpha, oops. Just relying on autocomplete to do everything for me. I thought I had one that was like just white. Oh, right. No, that does work. So I want white 0.2, maybe 0.1. Alpha is 1. It has to be 0.1 or it won't work. So this is like a 10%. Oh, wait, that's really dark. I want 99% white with 100% opaque. Let's see how that looks. Hey, those look a little bit more like cards. Good. Oh, I don't like that. That looks pretty bad. It's in the view. Shows horizontal scroll indicator equals false. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Like, again, it's not looking like a super awesome app you might find in the App Store, but it is looking like something that works. And then, like our super awesome card view that I showed before, I guess what we're gonna do is just put the name in the middle for now. So I'm like fatigued enough that I'm second guessing my spelling of cycle here. I'm like, is it sickle? Is it no, I'm pretty sure it's cycle. Ah, that's not how that's supposed to work at all. And this will just be label. Label dots translates auto resizing masks into constraints equals false. And let's just return it. And yeah, let's lay it out in the initializer. Oh, and this is read-only because I set it up as a function, whereas I want it to be just a function that executes once. So like this, when it like looks for this for the first time and it's nil, this is what lazy means. When it finds out that it's nil, it will go, okay, I need to execute whatever is in here, and that will give me whatever it is so that I can use it. So in this case, this will create a label the first time it is asked for, and that will probably be here when we say add subview. Okay, first of all, this is it. We're inside a cell. Cells have content views. Label. And then we're going to just lay it out similar to what we did before. So label the leading anchor constraint equal to anchor layout margin guide dot leading anchor. Trailing anchor and dot center y anchor equals, I guess layout margin guide probably has a center y anchor. Yeah, sure it does. The margin guides are just sort of like arbitrarily decided guides for the system that frequently are just like 8 points away from the edges, but it's like designed so that if you're just laying things out in a hurry, that you have sort of a default spacing between things, which on iOS is set to 8 for whatever reason. So yeah. Okay, so that should put our label in approximately the right spot. I'm just thinking if there's any gotchas here. The label has only one line by default, but that should be fine, I think, for most of what we're doing. So I think that is enough constraints. Oh, that was the gotcha. I was like, when I started laying out the constraints, I was like, oh, I need to fix that. These constraints, like, are just being sort of existed. They're being created, but they just exist. They're not actually doing anything. So what we actually need to do is activate them, which will add them to the view hierarchy. I like doing it like this, because then it's harder to make mistakes. So this is the way that I do it, which basically says you pass in an array of layout constraints, and it will then activate any constraints that are inside that array. The way that is also commonly done is to just say, if this is your constraint here, you say is active equals true, and that will add it to the hierarchy as well. The problem with this is that it's really easy to define a bunch of constraints and then on random ones forget to type is active equals true, and your code will compile and everything will look good, and then for some reason your view will look wonky and it will take forever to figure out that this is active equals true is not there. So I like to just put them all in a block like this where they are all activated together. There's also a method that specifically adds layout constraints, and it is supposed to be used for adding and altering layout constraints. But the catch with that method is that you need to sort of track which layout pass you're on, or what you're actually whether or not you should add the constraint at that time. In most cases, it's safe to do it in the initializer, and it just means that it's only going to get executed once. So that's fine. Okay, so this label should be centered here, and it should be more or less, sorry, it should be centered like this, and then it should be locked to each of these margins, which means that it will, given that it's left aligned by default, probably always be on the left. So we'll also say label dot alignment, text alignment dot center, so it shows up in the middle. Like the label itself will stretch all the way across the card, but the text will always be centered within that label, so it will appear in the middle. And I guess we'll just say, actually, let's just demonstrate what I meant by like customizing individual cards. Yeah, spelling. So actually, one of the reasons that spelling is not such a big deal is that, in general, we like to code things so that the compiler catches errors. So a good example is this reuse ID thing. Like instead of just using this string, which I can just use, like I could just type this in everywhere that it's used. So in like, I use it here, and then I use it again down here. I could just type the string in every single time that it's used, but the catch with strings is every single time that you have a string, there's a chance that you could make a typo or a misspelling or whatever, and that could cause you problems. Here, if I make a typo, the compiler is going to catch it. It's going to be like, I don't know what that is. And so that's one of the reasons that it's good to define all your strings in constants or in files, just somewhere that you don't need to worry about them, because then it just will not work, as opposed to it being sort of like a treacherous bug that you'll find later. Okay, so we put this label in place. You can see that we didn't actually put any text into it, so let's demonstrate that. So here is our card view controller, or draw view controller, and then remember we have this cell for row at index path, or cell for item at index path. I'm seeing tables again. So we create the cell, and then we're going to say space. So we have a cell, but we don't know right now. This method. There we go. This method always returns the default cell type, UI collection view cell. So if we try and type like cell.label, you can see that the autocomplete doesn't know what it is, because that's something that we have defined in our custom subclass. So we need to actually define this cell as our custom cell. And so what we can do here, we've got to return the cell regardless. So I guess we will cast it down here. So okay, what does this do? Demonstrates poor syntax. Okay, what does this do? So now we have a cell, and it is a UI collection view cell. Right, okay, so we need to... Yeah. So we're going to say guardlet card cell equals the cell as a card cell. So every card cell is a UI collection view cell, but not every UI collection view cell is a card cell. So this inherits from this. So what this does is it tries to turn UI collection view cell into a card cell. And if it works, then we end up with card cell. If it doesn't work, we will just return the cell, because we won't be able to run any configuration on it. And then we can say card cell dot label dot text equals and then remember we're getting passed in this index path by the method in the first place up here. So that tells us the section that it's in, 0 indexed, and the item within that section, also 0 indexed. So 0 indexed, I mean the first item is 0, the second one is 1, and so on. So here I'm going to say index path dot item plus 1. And let's run that. Okay, so now we have card 1, card 2, card 3, card 4, and card 5. Right, so I said that this was 0 indexed. This index path has 2 values, the section and the item. So we've said, okay, give us the item within the section, and then give us add 1 to that because it's 0 indexed, and then append card to the beginning of it, and we have 5 cards. Great. So now we need to stop hard coding these values, and actually like hook this up and make it all work the way that it is in theory supposed to work. So so here we say let card equals deck.draw. First, we will get rid of this. So we don't want to hard code that anymore. We do still want this. So, yeah, number of draws. So remember, we created this cards drawn array that we're not really using for anything. So it's an array of cards, but it starts out with nothing in it. And so we're adding this card to it. Every single time we draw a card, we add it to that array. So what I'm going to do instead of hard coding, remember we said like how many cells should we return? I'm not gonna return that. I'm gonna say return cards drawn count. So however many number of cards are in the cards draw array, that's the number of cells that we want to have. And now in here, I'm going to say card cell dot label dot text equals, and then what I want is, first actually I need to get a card, so I'm going to set each of these cards up as a card. So I'll say card, or let card equals cards drawn, and so cards drawn is an array. We can call on a specific index of it, and in this case, remember, we're being given an index path which tells us which cell it is. So like cell 0, cell 1, cell 2, cell 3, and that corresponds to, we want cell 0 to have card 0, like index 0 from this array, and card 1 to have index 1, and so on. So I can just say index path dot item in here. So that is whatever is at that index of the array. This will crash incidentally if we ask for something that is not in the array, like if we ask for like 90 and that didn't exist. And then so card cell dot label dot text is going to equal card. We called this title, I think, for some reason. Yeah, as opposed to name, because that's smart. Okay, so we're going to find the card that corresponds to the cards that we have drawn there and do the title, and that should work. Now, I guess one other thing that we need to do is when we start the draw, so if number of draws equals 0, so this looks like where we're supposed to do our configuration. Yeah, so this is where we also want to clean our cards drawn equals empty array. So when we start a new set of draws, that's where we want to clear out our cards drawn array. Otherwise, we're going to end up just adding cards from multiple decks to the whole thing. Oh, wait a minute, no. Is that right? Am I... I need to be resetting the deck here, don't I? Where do I reset the deck? Okay, I definitely need to reset the deck. I don't think I'm actually doing it. That's silly. because I created a deck when I first... Right, okay, so I create a deck when I first create the view, but I think that I was not actually ever, like, restarting the deck. So this will actually do that. So we create the number of draws, we reset the text field text, we end editing, we say let the number of draws equal the draw number. We change the deck, or we create a new deck, we change the cards drawn back to nothing. So we only configure the UI after we draw a card? I see, okay. Okay, this seems about right. Okay, so the one other thing that I need to do here is anytime that I alter this array, I need to basically instruct the table view to reload its data, or the collection view to reload its data. Otherwise, it won't sync with changes in the array. So like every time that we draw a card, we add a card to the cards drawn array, and that will have the effect of changing what these things, like how many cards it thinks to draw, and to draw as in like sketching, how many cards it tries to draw into the collection view, and what it puts in those. But if we don't tell it to reload its data, it won't know. So I'll say table view. No, not table view. Got some sweet Magus music. Or draw view. Or collection view. This is always like my absolute favorite. Like the Magus boss music in Chrono Trigger is probably my favorite track in the entire game. It's pretty amazing. I remember once when I was playing Chrono Trigger, just getting to Magus and then just like leaving the music on and like recording it onto an audio cassette, just so I could listen to it later. I think this is just like the beginning, entering Magus's castle thing, but I assume that we're getting there, and that makes me excited. Okay, so drawView.collectionView, we want to reload data. This is the sloppy way of doing this, but that's fine. We don't need to like animate it right now or anything. So cards drawn, append card. I'm also going to reload the data there. I think those are the only places that we change the cards that are in the collection view. All right, let's try it. Because then when you get to the actual like full-on Magus boss music and the beat kicks in, it is pretty sweet. Okay, moment of truth. So Vizier got drawn, Vizier appears, draw, Comet, Comet. Nice! Yes, we will draw 2 extra cards. So probably we should like scroll to the new card as we draw it. And then we drew the Donjon. Why did we lose the tops off our cells? That's weird. And then this should clear it. Oh, because this... interesting. Okay, so... Interesting. This changed the height of that. Okay, so how am I gonna sort that out? View to layout subviews, table view reload data is not gonna work. I mean, the real... I guess the... So, as I said, what's happening is that like the text view and the text field, or the label and the text field, are not the same height. So when one gets switched out for the other, this increases or decreases in size, which changes the height of our cells. And the cells are not resizing as the collection view shrinks. So they need to know to refresh themselves. I think that there should be a way to do that in the layout, but I'm not too concerned about it right now. Is there an easy way that I can have it at a set height? I'm not going to worry about it, because I can move I'm going to move this to a different screen probably later anyway. And as I say, the stuff is not that big a concern right now. That's good though. This is doing what we want it to, which is the important thing. Okay, so the next thing that we want is that I can... Okay, well first let's clean it up just a little bit. So you know what we can do? We can give the stack a consistent height, I guess. Right? Like we could say that the stack is always the top 30% of the screen, or the top 40% of the screen. Again, I'm just looking for like quick fixes. So the stack view is like not having its height set automatically. So yeah, we could just say this shouldn't even break our layout. Say like stack dot height anchor constraint equal to... Why do I have self in here? That's gross. I'm the worst for putting self in where it's not supposed to go. I mean, it doesn't do anything wrong. It's just bad syntax. So we'll say that this is equal to layout margin guide dot height anchor multiplier try that. So like, yeah, say that the stack is always the top the top 30% of the screen. See if that breaks anything. It might break something on the iPhone 4. What does our app go back to? Ha! Okay, so now it wants to stretch something out, and it's stretching out this. That's not really what we want. Should solve our problem of stuff resizing itself. And now it's like not, but it's hitting layout ambiguity here. It doesn't know what to resize. So what I'm going to do is say that modify this label and say label.set content hugging priority to default high for vertical layouts. So that should default high. So the I guess the default value for layout priority is required. Like that is the setting is called required. And so this is still not working. I might have broken it. Oh no, I just don't have a value in there. So setting this to default high should allow it to stretch. Yeah, hugging priority is like it. How much does it hug its content? Oh, which is the key to what's going on here. The text field doesn't have any content when it has nothing in it. That's why it's changing size. The text field doesn't have any content in it, so it has a hugging priority of like negative, like basically infinity low. It has no content, so it has no content to hug, so it will always grow before anything else will grow. I have not solved this with stack views yet. This is something that I am still trying to figure out a good solution to. I could give it... So its intrinsic content height is not changing, so I could just do a hacky thing and say like text field dot height anchor dot constraint is equal to constant text field dot intrinsic content size dot height. So whatever its intrinsic content size is at that point, before we even laid anything out, that's how high it wants to be. I wonder if that'll work. This is like a hacky solution that I'm not super happy with, but it might do fine for right now. This is like me being like, I don't really care about this layout, and then spending time obsessing over the layout. Okay, so this is what we want. So 5 go. So this moves up. The draw button stays pinned to the bottom. Yeah. And then that moves down to accommodate it. Sure, that's fine for now. This is like an oddity of stack views. I can probably also just make this smaller. Make it like 25%. Okay, let's move on from this. What was I going to do? Right, so the next thing is that we want to have it so that if I click on one of these cards, it shows me again the card. All right, that before we do that, first. So we want to reload the table view, and then draw view.collection view, scroll to item at index path, and we want index path. Where are my default initializers? It should be like item. And we want draw view dot collection view dot count -1 should give us the thing that was just added. Section 0 and center animated true. Let's make that a little more readable. Okay, so theoretically, we add this. So we add to cards drawn. So we pen the card to the end of it. Oh, not collection view. Sorry. We want cards drawn. There we go. So we append this to the end of cards drawn. And then we scroll to cardsdrawn.count -1 gives us the last item in it, because again, remember the index is 0 indexed, so an array that has 5 items in it will have its last index as 4. It'll 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the you know what? You're right, Rock Pusher. We could just like toss default. We could like put 0 in the cards drawn by default, and that would give it content and therefore let it resize properly. So yeah, we scroll. We set the index path that we want to scroll to there. I thought it was called center. What are my options? Centered horizontally. Okay. And we do want to animate that. Do you want to animate that? Yes. And it's not centering it because because this is as far as it can go. It is scrolling to it. But you can't actually see the scroll because, of course, there's a big thing coming up in front of it. Okay, that's good enough for right now. It's also possible that what we actually want to do is like insert the card at the beginning so that this is the most recent card drawn. I think that is actually what we want to do. Which is fine. It just means that we need to scroll to index 0. And card drawn, insert card at 0. I drew the donjon. So let's see what happens if we scroll over here. Yeah. Good. So like this all looks pretty hokey right now because of course we've got a big modal filling up the entire screen, but you get the idea that it is scrolling back to the beginning, and then this gives us sort of our full rundown of cards. Okay, so now we want it so that let's see. Let's just make some commits here. So this is all just cleanup, right? So stage, stage, stage. Clean up, draw view layout. Commit. So then this is adding our custom cells. Add custom card cells. Okay, so next, yeah, we want it so that when we click on the cards, that we get the same controller up, and that's pretty easy. Where is the? So here's the code where we resolve a card. Well, we don't want to actually resolve the card when we click on it. We just want to show it. So I'm going to just create a function here for present card. So we'll just present whatever card we have there, break that out there, and then if we go back to our collection view delegates, so right now, I guess that is the layout delegate. Uh-oh, errors. Oh, right. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so that's not gonna work because we had to create the card view controller and then set the effect handler to handle whatever the effect of the card was. Now, I guess what we could do is just we could just refactor. So let's get rid of that. This like feels kind of like a not particularly great way of doing this, but so I'll put that back like that. So we'll say percent card with effect true here. So we want to trigger the effect when we show the card here. And then here we'll say if effect and otherwise don't. So if there's an effect, then we set the effect handler on the card view controller, and so the effect will trigger when the card is shown. But if effect is false, then that won't happen. So now, this is clearly our layout delegate, so let's put a new section here. And this will be where's autocomplete? Okay, so we want did select item index path, and we'll say similar to what we've done before, let card equal drawn cards. Cards drawn dot cards drawn, and then the index will be index path dot item, and then present card false. I kind of feel like this is incorrectly named. And that definitely should not be. Because a Boolean should always have some sort of descriptive. It's like processor is 2peg to run a refactor. There we go. So, so this should be renamed to like should trigger effects. All right, so and then this will need to be renamed. So if should trigger effect, then trigger the effect. Everything is breaking. I think my refactor failed. Nothing was renamed. Okay, that should set us up for doing what we want to do. Draw 5 cards. Go. Star. And click on it again. We get it. Keep drawing. Then we draw the donjon. Ah! It... That totally triggered the effect. Why did that trigger the effect? Oh, right. So it's not triggering the handler, but it is triggering the effect still. I see. Right, because we pass the card into the card view controller. It doesn't need the handler to know what the effect is. It just needs the handler to manage the effect. So what actually needs to happen... So the handler can remain. But the controller needs to change. So we had this on view to appear, and it has resolve card effect. So this card view controller needs to have its initializer changed. Like that. And then say like that, and then so we'll store this information when we initialize, and then when we appear, if should trigger effect, then resolve the card effect. Oh, we need to pass along. Should trigger effects. That's now if we look at the Donjon, now it doesn't trigger the effect anymore. So we can just keep on looking at all the cards that we have looked at. And then we say go. Say go, it clears the deck and starts us again. Good. Good. Okay, we're making progress. All right. So now what do we want to do? This is like, we're making pretty decent progress here. Hi, Nick Arrow. We have made some improvements to the app since you last saw it. It's pretty cool. I'm trying to think of what else. So, like, things that I wanted to do include the settings. Okay, let's do that. Let's do the settings view, I guess. I almost feel like we need to break this out, this thing out into its own view. So that when we start, we just see like draw how many cards, and then it transitions to this view, and we do the whole draw thing. And then when we're done, we go back. Maybe that's the next thing that we should do. Because that gives me somewhere to put like the settings and stuff too. And it makes sense to have sort of like an entry screen. I would also say that we could put in art, but I don't have the art prepped. I should have actually just got that all accumulated and put into a folder what art we have. Because we don't have all the cards, but we do have some of them. So yeah, let's... Like constantly screwing up my capitalization on my titles here. Again, as I said before, these marks don't actually do anything in the code. They just allow us to have nice organized classes so that we can find all of our various stuff. So it's not actually that important. Yeah, we already accomplished more than I expected, and we've got 40 minutes left. So I'm sort of at a loss for what to do next. Because we don't have time to work on the Hearthstone, the Hearthstone hand thing. So tap on drawn cards to show them is implemented. I still haven't heard that awesome Magus music, but maybe I just haven't been... haven't been listening closely enough. I'm not sure. Where's delete branch? Oh, I can't delete it while it's the head. Okay, so... yeah, Ash and I have talked about maybe doing sort of a joint stream thing, but I don't know if my computer is powerful enough to handle that. Hers probably is, actually. Because she has a desktop computer. It's also an older desktop computer, but it is a desktop computer, which probably means it just blows this thing out of the water. Okay, so moving the thing to its own view is going to be boring, but it's also probably necessary. So let's do that. So we'll call this title screen, setup view. Okay, and I was gonna like move these into nicer places too. That can get grumpy. Yeah, so hopefully Ash and I can collaborate on like actually getting this finished and out the door, because if she can draw the rest of the images and I can actually code it such that it works, that would be great. And get it in the App Store and become App Store $10 ears. Not that I would sell the app for $10. We would sell it for $1 and sell 10 copies of it and be rich beyond our wildest dreams. Okay, so setup, we are going to say new file. We will say UI view. We'll call it setup view. Realistically, I think that there is a place in the market for a good Deck of Many Things app. last I looked, which was granted like a couple years ago, there was not like a really good Deck of Many Things app. So I think people would enjoy a Deck of Many Things app to play with the Deck of Many Things with their D&D group. I know I would. And of course, ultimately, I'm just making apps for myself. Okay, so setup view and the controller. So the view, we want to move some of our stuff from the draw view. We'll take a stack. We'll take the text field. Take the label. We'll take the button. And then in the init, we will do a lot of the same layout that we did in the draw view. We have to implement this. I'm like not worrying about the fact that that method basically crashes the app because it's never getting called. But in theory, we could, instead of like doing all of our setup like in here, we could put it in a separate setup method and then call the method from both these initializers. But I'm really not worried about it right now because this is, as I say, never ever ever getting called. So yeah. I am like listening to, oh, did they actually hard code this into the music? That'd be interesting. I still feel like I have not heard the awesome Magus music. I don't know what's going on there. Also, we only have 20 minutes of music left and like 35 minutes of stream, so I don't know what we're going to do for the rest of that. Maybe play some Secret of Mana music instead. Okay, so let's copy our layout code from the other view again, because a lot of it is just going to go here. We are actually going to need to change some things, but so we want the stack, we want the text field, we want the label, we want the button, and then we don't have a collection view. This is the Lavos music, which is amazing. This is like, I don't remember whether this is Lavos Phase 1, but it's super good. You can cast Luminar over and over and over again, because Chrono's like super powerful by this point. And I'm like making the hand gestures to like emulate the Luminar effect, but you're of course not seeing it. God, Chrono Trigger is a good game. It's a really good video game. Nice. I am happy that there is currently no Deck of Many Things app. Though, I mean, anyone watching this can go build this app because you're seeing me do it. So you can just take the code and transcribe it. I guess you can't copy and paste it out of your Twitch feed or YouTube, but you can do that if you want to. I am not putting it on GitHub because I'm not going to make it that easy to copy and paste it. But I will put it on probably my private GitHub. So if you want to... I'm not going to make jokes about hacking into private GitHub accounts because that happens. That is a real way of hacking into really high profile apps. So don't hack my GitHub account, please. If it's any more tempting, I will not ever put the Deck of Many Things app in there if that will prevent you from ever doing it. Okay, so this we can get rid of because we're just going to let this be whatever height it wants to be. So let's say stack dot center x anchor equals center x anchor and center y anchor. Not center X anchor, center Y anchor. Oh no, I guess for X we should get rid of that and say center Y anchor is, or center Y anchor, and then trailing and leading. Did I like delete the leading constraint? No. What am I even doing anymore? We don't need to set that anymore. Oh no, we still do need to set that. So centered Y and then X is just stretched out across the entire view, stopping at the margins, which is about what we want. And let's quickly override the stuff that we need to override here. The setup view button, it has I remember the first time that I beat Lavos, like in the first fight where he looks like a porcupine, and I was like, yeah, and then like got inside and was like, oh man, sorry, this is big Chrono Trigger spoilers. I'm sorry, you didn't ask for that. You didn't, you had no way of knowing that you were going to get Chrono Trigger spoilers. You should play Chrono Trigger if you haven't. You can get that on the App Store too. So this, we want... view equals... we do want to set the frame here to my screen dot main screen dot bounds, and then have the view set to setup view there. I'm bobbing my head to this music at this point. This is like super good memories. This is what I was hoping for. Yes, I can. I can assign setup view to UI view compiler. Don't be silly. This doesn't need to do anything yet. Okay. And then let's go to the app delegate and say that instead of so instead of starting with the draw view controller, we want the setup view controller. Okay, something's failed. Oh. Probably would help if we were consistent with changing things where we said that we were going to change them. Am I just making changes on master now? Yeah, I think I am. Great. This view has no background color, which is why everything is dark. Scream. Great. So we did that. So now we need to actually like have our setup view controller do something. I guess we'll say that a draw view controller only exists for a specific draw. So a draw view controller should be instantiated with a number of draws. There's going to be a fair bit of refactoring going on here. Oh my goodness. So, because a lot of this logic now that's in the draw view controller is going to be moved. We actually don't have an initializer here. That's why I'm like looking everywhere for an initializer. I'm like, where is it? It doesn't exist. So init number of draws. That's an integer. We still need to implement that required initializer, even though the warning is gone. There it is. Fix it for me. I don't want to fix it myself. So cool. So now we can actually remove this default value because it's irrelevant. Oh, but we do need to say what it is now that it doesn't have a default value. So, oh, and we didn't call super. That was dumb. Okay, so that's good. All right, so it can't actually call super init. It needs to call the designated initializer for UI view controller, which is with bundle. There it is. So this is like asking where it is in the sort of app pseudo file system, but we just want the current one, so we're just gonna get rid of, or we're not gonna provide that information, and it will figure it out. Okay, so we want to pass that in, and then if we go back to our draw view, we don't need this text field anymore because we're never going to use it. So we will get rid of that, which means that we can get rid of that. Possible that this kind of refactoring is the worst possible thing to be doing while I am this tired, but we will find out. So we set the number of draws when we show up. This no longer has a text field, so that's not going to happen. Actually, what's going to happen here is that let's move this. To the setup view controller, at least part of it. Because now what's going to happen is so let drawString equals setup view dot text field dot text. And then the draw number is the integer value of that. Pardon me. Don't need this anymore. Okay, so instead we will say let draw view controller equal draw view controller with a number of draws, and that will be number of draws. So we'll provide a number of draws, and then actually we should provide, here we were just setting the full deck every time, but we can actually set the cards in the deck as well. So let's actually allow is that just a Boolean? From full deck bool. So here we set the number of draws, and then we can set some of the stuff that we're doing here. So here, the deck is set here, so we can set that in the initializer. So, and then here we were providing a default value for the deck, but we don't have to do that anymore because now we're setting it up in the initializer. This can also be, no, this does need to be a variable because it does need to change. So that's fine. Okay, so back to our setup view controller. So cards drawn is not relevant here. What did I call it? From full deck? I'm just going to pass true here, but we can set a control to determine whether that's what we want. And then we don't need to reload the data on our collection view because we don't have a collection view here, obviously. Okay, so that's our new start draw method. I don't know why I put an open bracket there, but that's unnecessary. So drawstring is the text field text. Okay, so here actually, I guess we want to say if that there's no text there. Else just get out, because there's nothing, we can't do anything if we don't have any text. So return is just like end the method. So reset the text field, end editing, and then we create a new draw view controller with a number of draws equal to the number of draws. This is optional as well, so actually we need to check for that in our guard statement. That's why that was there. Oh. And I think that is the end of our Chrono Trigger soundtrack. But YouTube has this as a recommendation. That seems pretty good. Let's see what this gives us. An ad, maybe? Oh, it is giving us an ad. That's not nice of me to play for you. I can skip to the video in 3 seconds, though. Maybe I'll play you the first bit of an ad. It's a Grammarly ad, in case you were wondering. There, I've plugged their product now. That's even worse. Okay, so let's go. Okay. Yeah. So guard let draw string is the string that's in the text field, if there is one, and then if that string is convertible into an integer, then take that and then stop editing the text field and reset it to 0. Create a draw view controller, and then present draw view controller. No, lowercase. Come on, autocomplete. You can do it. Animated true. Completion. We don't care. And now I can't see you guys. Okay, so there's a square bracket there for some reason. I don't know why. So we create a draw view controller and then we present it. Great. I think that's all this setup view controller needs to do. And then the draw view controller. Right, so the start draw should just run the draw. So we don't need to do any of that anymore. Because this set cards drawn to empty, and that is being set automatically when we load. We don't have to reset stuff anymore because each card draw view is only being used for one set of card draws now. So we do the setup, and then the setup pushes the card draw, and then theoretically when we're done, it'll push back to the setup. So right now I'm just going to say if number of draws equals 0, yeah. So don't need to do any of that. So now if there's nothing in the deck and we press the button, then dismiss the view. Else run the draw. Okay, now it occurred to me that I have not set up my target here for the setup view controller. So setup view controller needs to in view did load. Super.view did load. Got 10 minutes here. I'm hoping to have something to show for this in the next 10 minutes, so we'll find out. Because after that, we need to go to bed so I can sleep. I gotta sleep off 50 hours of coding, 53 hours of coding after the stream this week. So, okay, so view did load. We're going to set up our target. So, setup view dot button add target self action start draw. Okay, so that's good. It also occurs to me that the stuff that we were doing in here. Yeah, Rock Pusher, the family is really well. We're doing awesome. Actually, we have hit 21 weeks as of today, and our daughter is in fantastic health and happy and doing new stuff every day. It's really exciting. Parenthood's amazing. It is highly recommended. Not saying have like a million kids or whatever, but we are very much enjoying our one child, and yeah, things are busy, but they're good. Okay, so I want to say text field. So that runs the draw. I feel like I need to set the label. That can go. And this, I'm gonna change this as well, actually. I'm gonna because we don't need that functionality anymore. So I'm just gonna have it so that whenever I set the number of draws, draw view dot label dot text. So whenever I set that, it tells us how many draws are remaining, or it will reset the label to tell us how many draws are remaining. All of our properties have these did set and did get methods that we can override to, or that we can implement to do stuff to react to their number changing. This is not reactive, but it is something. Okay, so that's good. The button title is always going to be draw for this view. Oh, actually, it's not. So if the deck is empty, it's actually going to be wait, that's not the deck. Is deck empty is not number of draws equals 0. Like that, this is not correct. In any case, we can add this to our did set for the number of draws. So let's actually just get rid of configure UI. So not is deck empty, but change the button to start new draw. So be draw or start new draw, sure. And the button title can be set to that. Okay, getting there. So configure UI on view did load is no longer relevant because it should be set in the initializer effectively by setting the number of draws here. I think everything else stays the same, right? So certainly the collection view stuff doesn't change. Run draw. If number of draws is greater than 0, blah, 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 blah. Present the card. The present card does the card and the effects. I think that's good. Let's crash. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So this is the draw view. So we no longer have a text field. That's fine. I note that I didn't actually provide any text for that label. Setup view. What is the label? Text field label. How many cards would you like to draw? And I guess that means we should say label dot number of lines equals 0. There's a compiler error somewhere that is preventing this from working, I think. Maybe not. Okay. Let's see what else is happening here. So we know what that's supposed to say. It'll be fixed next time. 5. Go. Okay, so this opens this. Okay, interestingly, so this seems to be working. And then start new draw dismisses us back to here. Good. So that should be set up. One thing that is not happening is that the set for... I wasn't sure if did set would trigger during the initializer, but I guess it makes sense that if super hasn't been initialized, it wouldn't. So I'm going to call this and this is just a programmatic variable that will return that. I was going to call it like draws remaining string so that would be really explicit. Let's say draws remaining string. We still need to move these strings into something that's like a little bit more elegant, but this will work. And then, so on our drawView.label.text equals draws remaining. So basically, like this property we created, we can only get, we can't ever set it, and it just gives us a text representation of the number of draws, and so then we can set on did set there. Should probably change the order of that. 5 draw. Should probably do this in the completion for the presentation so that it's like not happening in the background as that's being drawn. But yeah, good. We've made good progress today. This is looking like a lot better than it was when we started today, which is good. I started today in a bit of a sketchy low place from being pretty exhausted, but this is working out well. And as I say, it still looks kind of like garbage, but it is looking like nicer garbage, and that is a good step on the way towards looking really really nice. So, yeah, I feel like I did get a lot done tonight. This is good. If I even if I can only devote 3 hours a week to working on personal projects, it's good to feel like I am able to get them done. And this one I chose partially because it's relatively small in terms of execution. Like there's relatively few things that need to get done. So yeah, this is coming along, and it will continue to get better. So thanks for joining me tonight. This has been really good. I appreciate all of you hanging out and talking in chat, and just generally being around to hang out with me on these Friday nights, and encouraging me to keep on working on this stuff, because yeah, sometimes it can be difficult to motivate yourself to work on creative stuff, and that's really important. It's a really important part of your life. So awesome, thanks so much, and I'll catch you folks later. Yeah, keep in touch, and I'll see you next Friday.